All right. Hello, everyone. A few of you might recognize this guy. Uh-oh, I don't hear you. Are you messing around?
Oh,
Make a sound. Oh,
I'm here.
You're good. You're good.
You're still talking. I'm just letting you go.
Blah, 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 blah. So this is Ken Moellman, and Ken is the brand new, shiny, spanking vice chair of the Libertarian National Party. Congrats.
Thank you. No, it is definitely interesting, the new role, but mostly focused on internal stuff, not necessarily external. But there's
Right.
A lot of work to do internally, and so that's, I think, where I'm best suited.
And I mean, that's the thing. Tonight's not really about the fancy new title. Tonight's about a fancy old title, which is kind of still what you're probably going to be doing a lot of. You used to be the chair of the Ballot Access Committee. Is that right?
That is correct. That is a committee at the National Party that focuses on making sure that our candidate is on the ballot in as many states as possible. Obviously, our goal is always 50 plus DC.
Right.
But it is something that people don't realize, that basically Democrats and Republicans get to walk onto the ballot. Everybody else has to do crazy hurdles and jumps and stand on your head and, shout someone's name 3 times and sacrifice a goat to get on the ballot. It's rather ridiculous, the amount of extra work that is placed upon parties that are already smaller than the incumbent too.
Yeah. Quick question for the audience. James, you're hating the echo sound from me or Ken?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. So in 2016, because I went looking at some of the news, some of the LP news from like 2016.
Yeah.
Oh, James says both. I don't know, James. Might have to live with it.
In 2 windows, maybe? Is that what's going on there? Because
that's happened to me before. Make sure you don't have 2 windows open. Yeah, Matthew Alexander's good on his end.
Okay, all right.
I'm still Matthew, if you know how to contact James, help him out there.
And I still sound good because I just rearranged my mic, making sure I'm not causing the feedback. So
yeah, I didn't hear an echo or any feedback.
Good.
But anyway, I was going through some of the old LP news articles, and like every issue was some kind of update on ballot access, because getting Gary Johnson on, or whoever the candidate was, turned out to be Gary Johnson, but getting access in all 50 states was a really huge thing in 2016, and you were a big part of that.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and I say that as somebody who's not even on the ground petitioning. I am not. The one thing I'm not actually very good at all. Well, there's a couple things, but in particular, germane to this conversation, is I'm not a good petitioner, and I know why now. After doing it in 2018, I kind of know why I'm not a good petitioner. But yeah, I mean, I walk up to somebody with a clipboard and they literally like run away. They just run away. I'm like, I didn't even say anything.
Well, if you knew why now, why is that?
There's 2 different reasons. Apparently, my approach is bad, and then the other problem is that when I do get somebody on the hook, you won't believe it, Rob, but I tend to talk to them too much, trying to convert them rather than just get them to sign. And so
we had this comment earlier. No.
Yeah.
All right.
So, it is something, needless to say, I'm better at the logistical side. So organizing who's where, how, putting all the data together, building spreadsheets to keep track of our production rates. What do we need to get? What are we at now? Where do we need to be going, towards the deadline, that kind of stuff. And so that's basically what I focus on, is the nuts and bolts of getting us on the ballot, and how many resources, and do we need more? Are we running ahead of schedule? That sort of thing. Right.
So
I was going to say, I guess I should mention why that petitioning matters, is that's how we get on the ballot.
Right. Right.
in states where we do not have access, which when I just recently was put back onto the ballot access committee, now that I'm back on the LNC, and we have 14 states, one of which is done now. Alaska is done. And I believe Maine, we're in the process of turning in. It's really weird. Every single state has different laws. And that's another thing that complicates this significantly, is that it is not a standard process. And not only is it not a standard process, but some states do things differently than others. So in Kentucky, there's no such thing as a party petition, whereas most other states have what's known as a party petition, where you collect, usually it's 4 times as much as one statewide candidate, and every candidate is allowed to run for 4 years. Kentucky, we're only allowed to petition one candidate one time, each petition unique to that candidate, which means that, if we want to run a slate of candidates in a gubernatorial year, our executive branch year, we have to collect 5,000 valid signatures for each of the campaigns. And so that's 6 campaigns, it's 7 candidates, but since governor and lieutenant governor together, we have to get 30,000 signatures just to put those people on the ballot. And that's valid signatures. And in a drive that large, you need to go about 50% over. So you're really talking about 45,000 signatures to get our slate on the ballot in 1 year. Whereas other states, that number of signature would put us on for 4 years for any race.
So help us understand what a valid signature is.
Sure. So every petition form has information that the voter needs to fill in. And it varies, again, state to state. Hooray, everything's different. But usually it involves at least the person's name and address. That's pretty common. Some states have a signature box as well. Some states have a date of birth box. In Kentucky, our form is flawed in that it has city and then uses the ampersand symbol and state. So it's city and state, but it's city ampersand state. And amazingly, a lot of people mistake that for a slash instead of an ampersand, and they put either the city or the state, but not both, which then invalidates the signature because it is not a complete line. So all the information has to be filled out as the state puts it out there. Some states, I think it's Massachusetts. One of the states has what they call the stray mark rule, where if somebody is an idiot and puts just goes and puts a mark on the petition page, it invalidates every signature on the page.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. You have states like Florida where 1 signature per page. So you're rolling in literally boxes of pages. Or as I like to say, we killed a rainforest for this. And it's really a lot of work, and every state's different.
Right. So now, because I've been a little involved in validation before.
Yes.
I know that, some people argue against validation. Some people just argue overkill.
You can do that. The main thing is whether or not you have the volunteers remotely who are willing to do validation. So for instance, I mentioned I'm not very good at petitioning. I'm pretty good at validation though. And I'm willing to do the validation work. Validation prevents us from way overspending. It also gives you that comfort that you have enough valid signatures. So when we did, and Rob, when you wrote the validator software, when we turned in the petition for David Patterson in 2014, we knew exactly how many signatures were valid. We knew the number. Like it was, I don't remember what it was, but it was exact. It was, a rough number. And the media called and said, hey, do you think you're going to get a lawsuit? Because the last time when I ran statewide in 2011, they had tried to sue me off the ballot. Right. Said, do you think that you only turned in however many signatures? Do you think there'll be a legal challenge? And I said, no, I don't. And the reporter said, well, why not? And I said, because I know that we have 8,000 blah blah or 5,000 blah blah blah, whatever it was, valid signatures. And the reporter was like, wait, you have? And he read the exact number back and said, yes, exactly this many. We validated every signature. We know how many valid signatures we have. So they can bring a challenge if they want to, but it won't succeed. Right. And then because we did that, no challenge was launched. We didn't waste everybody's time in court. We could stay focused on our campaign.
Right. And that's also a really big deal from the volunteers' time. I mean, like, and donors too. Like one of our friends, Michael Chastain, I'm not even going to guess how much money he donated to get Ohio done. Plus, he personally did a lot of validation work.
He did.
And so you have this huge investment. I mean, it would be nightmarish to miss by a handful of votes. Signatures, just nightmarish.
Absolutely. And we had Ohio was the second largest drive I have ever been a part of.
Well, how big was it?
Ohio, if I remember right, we needed 54 or 57,000 raw signatures, or I can't remember anymore. It was a lot. It was over 50,000 signatures that we needed. It was a lot.
Right.
I still have the spreadsheet somewhere where by petitioner, I know what their validity rate was. I know, I have all that stuff. How many, and for those that not involved in this, validity rate is how a particular petitioner gathers X number of signatures, what percentage of those are valid. It's their validity rate. And it matters. It matters in a number of ways. Our contracts are set up. We do pay petitioners because this is a full-time job. I mean, understand that getting, I want to say it was 57,000. That's been too long. Maybe it was 57,000 valid. That sounds right. 57,000 valid, which meant it was like, some ridiculous number of other signatures we had to get. We have contracts with these folks because they have to get paid. They literally put their life on hold and go petition every day, all day, between 8 and 12 hours a day, depending on the day.
Right.
And it costs money to do this. So we make sure that we're making efficient use of those resources, which is, again, why validation comes in and why that's important. And
I can tell you, if I could go out and probably work at just about any other industry, take that money, give it to you to hire petitioners, and them go get the petition, and it's more efficient than if I just go petition, because they're good at getting signatures and they're good at getting valid signatures.
Yeah, the people that actually do this and get paid to do it will inevitably be the ones that are the best, because we do tend to pay by the valid signature, essentially. And as a result, you either are good at this or you don't do it, because you'll starve. So that is the kind of how we handle that. And it does work. We have a handful of people that we really rely on all the time. We have a number of other contractors that we contract work out to, because right now, for instance, we have 14 states, well, now 13 states in flight.
Wow.
Our petitioning corps can't be in 13 states at the same time. Like, that's just not a thing.
Right.
So, right now, I know in Pennsylvania, they've got a ton of people working that, and it's just dog slow. Some of the volunteers, I was talking to one 2 days ago, and he was complaining to me in text message. He was like, "This is ridiculous. I knock on people's doors. They're there, but they won't open the outside door because the fear of the virus, right?" And that's a real thing. We just lost a lawsuit in Pennsylvania trying to get the number of signatures reduced, like we have in a number of other states, because of this virus. It's extremely difficult right now to get signatures. And as a result, there's also a higher cost, right? Because just because these guys can only get 25 or 50 signatures a day when they normally produce 100 to 150, doesn't mean that they don't need to eat.
Right. Funny that way.
Right. It's funny that way. And so as a result, we as a party have to cover the differential because it's not their fault. We know these workers. We know these people. They're good, hard workers, and they do great work. But if people aren't going to answer the door, if they're not going to, be willing to share a pen, it gets infinitely more difficult to get this done.
Right. And most states won't let you do like online ballots.
No. An interesting one is in Maryland. They just kind of decreed that they're going to let us do electronic. Okay. And so I know that there's been a number of efforts been out there, and I don't know how successful. I haven't found out the degree to which it's been successful. but a number of phone banking efforts into Maryland to libertarians saying, hey, why don't you come to or go to this website, fill out this form. That is what signs the petition for us. And that's been fairly successful is my understanding. Plus, we know that those are valid signatures. So every person we're getting is a valid signature. So we're somewhere in the 98th percentile for validity rate on those. So that's a plus too.
Right.
But again, it's effort, right? We're having to dial into a state to make that happen.
Right. So I believe during the Patterson campaign, we did a little better than 2 and 3. We did a little better than 66%.
Yeah,
right.
Probably the average standard average is 2/3, 66%. So that's 50% on top of the minimum, and that's basically the standard. When you hire some of the contractors, especially the cheaper ones, it's a weird thing. You get what you pay for, and
funny that
almost like we know that as a party. But you get what you pay for, and so if you go with the cheaper ones, you end up with lower rates than 66. I've seen petitioners go as low as like 17%, which makes me wonder where in the heck those people were, because at some point in the question, are you just asking people if they're not registered to vote and then sign? Because just the law of averages, geez, how did you find the 17% of the people in the area that were not, the 83% of the people in the area who were not registered to vote? How did you do that?
Right.
Like that's actually a pretty cool feat that you managed to pull that off.
I don't want people to get the wrong idea though. So, some of these petitioners are also very excited about the party. I mean, they're hired guns, but it's not like they're just hired guns.
Right. Yes, absolutely. There are a handful of petitioners that I regularly go back to when I'm tasked with getting a drive done because they're reliable, they're libertarians, they actually care, right? And so I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but basically it's like a contractor. You can get one that does the job, you can get one that cares, right? And if you're paying the same amount, why not pay for the one that cares? Because they're going to, do a little bit extra just because they care.
Absolutely. So what's the absolute biggest ballot drive?
The biggest one I've done was the Oklahoma drive back in 2015. That was a monster. I want to say, I'm trying to remember how many signatures that was. I want to say it was 100,000 signatures. It was something dumb. I mean, it's a huge number of signatures. We spent a lot of money to make that happen because we had to. And the one thing, I was actually at the Libertarian Party of Oklahoma's convention, state convention, in my run for vice chair, stumping there approximately a month ago. And they have a very large, vibrant party now, lots of great people involved. And I told them, thank you, because I put in a lot of time and effort, as did others, to put Oklahoma's party on the ballot, and the growth that they've had as a result of them being put on the ballot, and then they actually got ballot access, which we could talk about how other ways other than petitioning to achieve ballot access. But they achieved it through the Gary Johnson campaign in 2016.
Nice.
And as a result, they've continued to grow and grow. They had a lot of people at their convention. It was a well-run convention. They are growing. They have quickly caught up to where we are in Kentucky, which is starting to spin up county parties, which is awesome. Nice. And it all came from getting ballot access and being able to focus on infrastructure and growth rather than going out and begging people for a signature.
Right. So, excellent. That's awesome. So speaking of other ways to get on the ballot, our criteria in Kentucky is Joe has to hit a certain percent for us this fall. Is that right?
Yes. Nope, wrong side. This side. Nope, still wrong. This side.
You had it right.
Backward, it's hard. Joe Jorgensen is our candidate in the Libertarian Party this year. In order for us to maintain ballot access for the next 4 years in Kentucky, the only measurement, the only test is percentage for president. And so most states have at least one other measurement or a party petition or both. Unfortunately, we have sued in Kentucky to make it clear that we have only one test And then otherwise we're stuck basically classified as independents, which is not right. That's actually already been said to be unconstitutional. But when you wander into the federal courts, you get a mixed bag of what people's motivations are as a judge and who they owe allegiance to. So as a result, they have said that it is constitutional and legal in Kentucky to have the only threshold measurement to be the presidential race, and that's it. No party petition, no other way to get our party on except for that.
Right.
Other states are different. Ohio, for instance, their threshold is 3%, which is higher than ours. But if they fail to make it, then they can do a petition to put a candidate, to put the party back on the ballot for 4 years through petition. And so that's what they're living on right now. When we finish that drive in 2018, we were able to we were on the ballot for 2018 and 2020. And they also get two swings. They have governor or president, whereas we only have president. So that's kind of just a good example of how different these laws can be, even in neighboring states.
Well, one of the things I really hate about what you're describing is, because we're a national party, but let's say there was some, really passionate state party that just wanted to focus on their state. What if they just don't have national aspirations?
Yep.
I mean, there is absolutely no way that they could obtain ballot access outside of just petitioning for every single candidate.
Right. And that is a problem, because the issue that you have is that in our history, in our country's history, we used to have many state-only parties that were focused on state issues. And the move away from that was twofold. First, the 17th Amendment, which took the Senate elections away from the states. And second, and more to the point of this conversation, were all the ballot access laws. And they did not exist until they started going in the late 1880s. And I think the last ones came in the early 1930s. But the bulk were 1890 to 1920, when all these ballot access laws were put in place, supposedly to stop the communists. Not even kidding. Like, that was the thing, to stop the socialists, actually, at the time. But
I believe that's also why we have unmarked vans in Portland right now, isn't it?
Something like that. I don't even know what that's. But yeah, the point is that the laws were literally put in place to stop an up and coming political movement.
Right.
That's what it was there for. And that was ruled okay. And now we live with that through today, 100-something years later. These laws still exist to keep challengers out. Understand that our country's history, we have had party shifts multiple times. We had the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, and then the Federalists died, and then it was only the Democratic Republicans, and then that party split. And then you had the Democrats and Republicans, which then renamed themselves to the Whigs. And then you had the Whigs die and become the Republicans again. And then you had, all along through this, you had state parties, right? And the best example, and the kind of one of the living fragments living pieces that are still there, is that in Minnesota, the Democratic Party, the state party, is known as the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And the reason for that is that there were two parties, the Farmer Party and the Labor Party, who merged and became the Farmer Labor Party. And they were a huge party in Minnesota. Huge. And so as things changed, and as the laws went into effect to really start axing state-only parties, the Democrats and the Farmer Labor Party came to an agreement that they would merge. And part of that agreement was they would never remove farmer labor from the name of the party. And that's why today they are still known as the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota. And that's part of the legacy that is still there. But it goes back further than that. The city of Cincinnati, during the Boss era, had a problem where the Democratic Party was run by a political boss, and they started a local party called the Charter Party. And that still exists actually today. Now, they only run in nonpartisan races in the city of Cincinnati, but the Charter Party still exists. It still elects people to city council and mayors of Cincinnati over and over. And it's a pretty common thing. They call them charterites. And they commonly get their backed candidate into office, and good for them. And I do think that we need more of that. I think, generally speaking, there are issues that are local that are not addressed properly by the Democrats or Republicans, and even to an extent us in the Libertarian Party, because we're a national party.
I'm really glad you said that, because sometimes people get lost in the fact that, like, we just tend to like a lot of options. I mean, we some of these lawsuits weren't just us. Some of them, also, I think the Green Party has been on some lawsuits with us.
Oh, sure. Greens, Constitution Party. There are a number of organizations and groups out there, and what's interesting is, and I do believe we're in the midst of a political shift. The Constitution Party is dying off. I think the Green Party is dying off. And what's interesting about that is that, the Libertarian Party seems to be standing up and staying alive. So it looks like we're going to be able to survive what we call a political era. The political eras were, again, the original two parties, then the one party, then the two parties, then the Civil War, then post-Civil War, and all those. It's roughly 20 to 40 years of a political era. And this political era, most people believe, if you believe this is a new political era, which I do, believe began with Goldwater and with Kennedy's assassination. And that those two events together started this new political era, which led to Reagan. It led to Democrats going a different route. It led to lots of things that are, that have been going on my entire lifetime and your entire lifetime.
Right.
And the question is, are we at the end of that era? Did 2016 end that era? Have we entered a new era of populism, which many people believe that we have? I don't know the answers. It's hard to know those answers without having the ability to look back in time.
Right.
Which, when you're in that time, it's hard to look back at the now. So, are we in a political shift? I do think so. I think the populism stuff is really strong and really big, and it's not just here, it's worldwide. Right. And in some ways, I feel like we're back in the 1920s. And I'm very, very worried that with all the monetary policy and all that stuff going on with, hey, just fire up the printing presses. Here's $6 trillion we just created this year from nothing.
Right.
That, we could end up in a 1920s scenario where economy and with the virus and everything else, we could end up in a total economic crash. And it might happen. I don't know. History tends to repeat itself because we tend not to teach ourselves history.
Yeah, I tend to think the real inflection points happened in 2008 and 2009 that led to, 2016. It's not like these things change in a day. It's a series of events that weave together, and
absolutely,
oh crap, look where we're at now. But to me, some of the big pivot points were the bank bailout. I mean, that set the stage for a lot of the populism stuff. Because it's like, well, if we can just throw infinite money at stuff, why not throw infinite money at me?
Right.
And then also, I think McConnell coming out and saying that his job was to make sure Obama did not get reelected.
Right.
That was a pivot point, because I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm definitely going to work to this, or it's like, that's not your freaking job. You have a whole other series of things you're supposed to be doing.
You're a senator from the state of Kentucky, it's all political era shifts are predicated on other social movements. And so you look at the Civil War and the pre-Civil War, post-Civil War stuff, right? Pre-Civil War, what you saw, and again, getting back to what we talked about before, the local parties, you had a bunch of smaller but growing national parties that were consistently getting decent results, especially even at the federal level, pulling 5 to 10% regularly. The Free Soil Party, the Liberty Party, these parties that especially were out west that were very specific to abolition of slavery, right? And that is what pushed us into the Civil War. That's what pushed us into the political change that happened. And likewise, I think what you're saying is true, that all the bailouts, all the shenanigans, all the BS. I'll tell you, I've polled multiple races. I used to do polling, have a polling company to do polling. Every single person I polled, the highest polling issue for many years has been ending political corruption. Mm-hmm. And whether that's real or perceived, there has been no other issue polled that high, that consistently. I mean, we're talking 80% plus all the time of people thinking that's a major issue, political corruption. And so, and I do think that started in 2008. I do think that started with the bailouts of the big banks that were doing shady stuff, and they got bailed out at taxpayer expense, and no one really went to jail. Like, they threw a couple of sacrificial lambs in and went, look, 3 people went to jail. That's good, right? Look what we did. We put 3 people in.
Yeah, those guys were so far down the food chain anyway. The ones who actually went to jail.
Of course. And so, that's
we had a little mini Nuremberg, and we sent a couple of the guards to the news. That's basically, Eichmann, he's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the point being that's exactly the issue, right? Is that you've got a real populism out there fueled by the shenanigans that were going on, people lining their cronies' pockets, which was fueled by political desire, right? That was the whole point, is that you had political machines being funded by the beneficiaries of political corruption.
Right.
And you had this cycle of money that was saved through political corruption by those interested parties. A portion of that would end back up in the pockets of the political campaigns of the people who legalized that form of corruption.
So I know you won't know this number off the top of your head, but just best guess, what is it going to cost LPKY? And you can do it in dollars or man hours, however you want to do it. What do you think it's going to cost LPKY these next 4 years if we don't get Joe the number of votes we need?
So I did the math, and obviously even with ballot access, we haven't run a full slate. But if we continue to grow, if we continue to have a full slate in the non-presidential even year, which is the year where there are the most elections in Kentucky that are partisan, I want to say the number of signatures that would be required. I did this a long time ago, but it was over 200,000. Like, it's a lot of signatures.
Right.
The going rate before COVID was $3 per raw signature, which comes out to $4.50 per ballot. So you take that amount and you multiply 200,000 times 4.5. You're talking $1 million, and that's 1 year. And that's why most states have a party petition, so you don't have to do that kind of nonsense. Right? You have a petition. So in our case, again, 5,000 is the most we would ever have statewide. So a petition of 10 or 15,000 signatures would give you 4 years of statewide access. That would typically be how that would work. And Ohio, because they have 2.5 times the population, you see the same kind of. It all works out the math. Roughly that amount. And so the point being that most states would have the ability to do the much cheaper solution. Unfortunately, Kentucky does not. And the courts have decided that, too bad, you're just not going to get them. So the only way that's going to happen is if we can elect enough people to the state house to change that, or continue to lobby and beg that they fix it.
So we have a number of people on the ballot to go to Frankfurt.
We do.
Of course, everybody needs to be supporting the hell out of those people.
Yes.
And that's why you commonly see me bring them on the show. We got to start getting people to Frankfurt, people. So seriously, get off your butt, help them get to Frankfurt. But like a dollar you spend or an hour you spend on getting Joe votes this year, that's like going to save you $10 or 10 hours in coming years. So seriously, get off your butts and do it. Whatever you can come up with.
Here's the issue with ballot access, all of this in Kentucky, right? The math of Kentucky is that a Democrat cannot win. They cannot win the presidential race. That all changed. We used to be a blue state. That changed with Obama. That was the end of that. For whatever reason, rationale, whatever. There's a handful of reasons we could go into them, but right now, irrelevant. The point being that a Libertarian will win the state of Kentucky before a Democrat will. And that's based on the math of what we've looked at. We've looked at this math. We've done a lot of analysis. It is an electoral college race, right? So the key here being that it doesn't matter about the vote nationally. It matters what the vote is in the state.
Right.
And so because literally the numbers say that a Libertarian will win before a Libertarian will win before a Democrat does for president in Kentucky, you can vote however you want in Kentucky for president. It's not going to change the outcome unless something crazy happens and we win, which I hope for. But based on history, not likely. But we continue to grow, and that's good. The point being is, if you want to see other changes, and we do, we have people pushing policy at the state and at the county level. If you like what you see there, if you like the changes that we're trying to push at those levels, we really need you to come out and support Joe. We understand that there's pressure. I certainly understand the pressure that people believe that, and you're going to hear it, it's the most important election in our lifetime, because every election is apparently the most important election in our lifetime. I'm guessing it's because it's the only one going on right now.
Right.
It's not actually the most important election in our lifetime. Not in Kentucky, because it's not going to change anything, whatever you do. So I encourage you to look at the candidates that are on the ballot in Kentucky. I encourage you to vote for the best one, because that does send feedback to the system. The political scientists, and I consider myself one of them, at least an amateur one, we look at this data and we see, oh, wow, look, this county over here, this precinct, they went way high for the Libertarian. What's going on there? Or, oh, look over here in this precinct. This was a Green Party precinct. That's kind of interesting. Wonder what went on there. And we do that analysis and we look at those numbers and we notice when there's pockets of people that are doing, like on Sesame Street, one of these kids is not like the other exercise, right? It's like, oh, look, that's different. What's going on there? And so you can make the most impact politically by being different. That actually is more powerful, because all the pressure that you're going to hear over the next 3.5 months of, you have to vote for Biden to get Trump out. You have to vote for Trump to save America. You've got to do whatever. The you got to do's, you don't. You got to don't in Kentucky. You do not have to do any of it. It doesn't matter. If you like what's happening though locally, I would strongly encourage you to cast a vote for Joe Jorgensen, because it is literally the only way you're going to keep seeing us as effective as we can be at that level. And it's unfortunate. It's not what I want. I have asked for years and tried. We've sued. The Libertarian Party has sued 3 times over this and lost all 3 times. We've tried to make it some other threshold. So if you want to see things change and you want to see us continue to run many candidates in many races, please consider voting for Joe, especially if you like her. If you like her, I really want to tell you, just do it. It's not going to change anything, I promise.
But those lawsuits, I mean, they weren't even exclusively for us.
No, we had the Constitution Party involved. I think Greens were involved once. We've definitely, this isn't about Libertarian Party, right? This is about ballot freedom. It's about the ability for people to have choices.
Right.
I'm also a big proponent of instant runoff voting.
I knew that was coming.
Oh yeah, of course it's going to come. you get the whole spoil vote thing and all that. I've never sought to spoil an election or split a vote. I have a political philosophy that I am trying to get people to understand how that fits into public policy and how, if it was enacted, it would make everyone's life better. That if you, as an adult, make decisions for yourself, you're going to make better decisions than I would, because I don't know you as well as you know you. You're going to make better decisions for you. I'm going to make better decisions for me. And if we can all agree to that as long as we're not hurting anybody else, that's us. That's the Libertarian Party, right? And so I believe that in the battle place of ideas, that we are I believe we're right. Obviously, or else I wouldn't be here. That would be kind of silly. Like, oh yeah, I know we're wrong, but I'm just hanging out. It wouldn't make sense. But the point is that, yes, instant runoff and ballot freedom are the way that things get done. Imagine if there was a law that made it extremely hard for any restaurant to exist other than McDonald's or Wendy's.
Right.
And that's basically what they've done with these ballot access laws. They've made it very, very hard for parties to exist that are not Democrats and Republicans. And so, hey, I like Wendy's and I like some stuff at McDonald's, but I do from time to time like to go somewhere else. I like to go to Pizza Hut or Domino's or Donato's. Not Donato so much, but the point is there's choices. What if you went to a store and it's like you can have any soda you want as long as it's Coke or Pepsi, and that's all we have. That's the kind of setup that has been legislated by the Democrats and Republicans to protect the Democrats and Republicans. And of course, surprise, surprise, they're not really that excited to change the protections they've codified into the system. So, if you want to see that stuff change, if you want to have more choices, and this is something, Rob, we've talked about this. Let's be real. Trump is not the best Republican available, and Biden is not the best Democrat available. These are not the two best people in America to run the country.
Right.
Because if it is, we're doomed. But these are not the two best people in the country to run the country, right? These are the guys who won a popularity contest inside of their clubs.
Right.
And so, and make no mistake, that's what political parties are, private organizations. They are clubs. They're a special carved out thing, IRS Section 527, whatever. But at the end of the day, it is a group that has a common cause, and it's basically a club that does politics. Libertarians chose Jo Jorgensen. We thought of the candidates that decided to run, that she was the best. On the Republican side, you had Trump, who was already the incumbent. It's extremely rare to have a run against the incumbent, and the rules on the Republican side are written in such a way that it's basically impossible to defeat an incumbent president. And on the Democratic side, I don't know how the heck Joe Biden ended up there. I mean, the Democrats had so many better choices. I'm like, wow, you guys literally chose one of the worst candidates you could come up with. It's like, and I guess part of it is we have this growing polarization in the country. So there's a whole lot of love or hate and Joe Biden just happened to be the meh candidate. Right. So, nobody hated him. Everybody kind of laughs like, oh, look, it's Uncle Joe. He's drunk again. And, just kind of rolls with it. But I don't know, man. I mean, I can't believe that we don't need more choices. And that's really the whole point. The Green Party is going to have their candidate on the ballot in a number of states. I don't know if they'll be on in Kentucky this time or not. I don't know that they'll be on in Ohio. They may be on as an independent in Ohio because it's easier. We need more choices. And not just because of the voters themselves needing more choices, right? I don't want to eat at McDonald's and Wendy's every day for the rest of my life, but also because it gives us better feedback, right? It's the information fed back into the system.
Right.
That helps move politics.
Right.
And historically, the third parties, even when they're not successful at actually getting people into Congress, which, by the way, many were. In Kentucky, we've had 12 different parties serve in the U.S. Congress from Kentucky.
Nice.
So, or congressmen from 12 different parties over time. But even when they're not successful at doing that, when they're successful at getting 5 to 10% of the vote consistently, a major party ends up taking on one or two of their key issues. So, for instance, the Free Soil Party and the Liberty Party and all of those, they had all those things that they were specifically pushing for slavery. They were getting 5 to 10% of the vote all the time. And as a result, the Republicans, when the Whig Party was collapsing and they were reforming the Republican Party, and they wanted to pull in that 5 to 10% of the vote, they went to those guys and said, "Hey, what do you need to support us?" And they said, "We need your party to support the abolition of slavery." And they said, "Okay, we can do that." And so they did. And that's how the Republican Party became an abolitionist party. It wasn't because they felt like being it. It was because 5 to 10% of the population out west wanted abolition of slavery. Very much so, to the point where they didn't care that their vote was being lost or wasted. They really wanted it. And if more people are willing to stand up and step forward and say, "This is what I actually want," then that's what you're actually going to get.
And that's what we've been doing since 1971.
Yes.
So join us, vote for us, even if we don't end up taking the office, like Ken says, you'll push the duopoly to pay attention to the things you're voting on, like maybe ending the war on drugs, ending victimless crimes, ending qualified immunity,
ending picking up random people off the street in vans and unmarked vans and unmarked. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's the point, though, right? Is that
I tell you what's crazy about that, Ken. I don't think people see this now that Trump's done it. Say Biden wins.
Yeah.
Let's say the Republicans pull the same crazy ass shit that the Dems did at the end of 2016, early 2017. Those unmarked fans are going to be picking up Republicans.
Listen, people like to say it's a fallacy, but the slippery slope is real. And you see it in politics all the time. Remember back when it was a scandal? Remember when it was a scandal when Bill Clinton smoked marijuana but didn't? I'd never inhale. I didn't inhale. And that was like, okay, well, he didn't inhale. I guess that's okay.
No, that one pissed me off because it's like, you lied to your friends. You lied to your friends about if you were.
And then Clinton also had the affairs, right? So that was a thing. No, moral outrage. Well, now you've got Trump. Fast forward, right? Trump. Let's go to Obama, right? Obama outwardly said, "Yeah, I smoked weed."
Sure.
And then you have Trump, who has on like wife number 5 and wife number 3. He was cheating on wife number 2 with, and it doesn't matter. Well, whatever.
Well, you have to understand, some of them were really hot.
Right. I'm trying to come up with an appropriate Trumpism, but I can't come up with an appropriate one, so I'm not gonna. I'm gonna leave it be.
Hey, man, you have a big meeting you have to be to in 12 minutes, and I have a separate one.
Yeah. So,
but before we go, there's going to be a glorious event coming up, I believe, in Cynthiana, where people can come meet the vice chair in person.
In person. I'm going to go way far away, about 45 minutes from my house, which those that know where I live, it's 45 minutes to anywhere. But I will be in Cynthiana at the 4th District Cynthiana gathering. They're trying to get the Harrison County party spun up. And so I'll be there. I think that's next week at about this time, if I remember right. My schedule, I haven't slept a whole lot in the past week or so, and my schedule's crazy, so I'm living day to day. I did remember I had this podcast a whole hour and a half before it was on. That was pretty good. I was pretty proud of myself.
So if somebody knows the link to the event, throw that in the comments for viewers.
Yeah,
and if nobody does, I'll go find it and do it my own frickin' self. But it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, and the key thing being that if you're interested in the Libertarian Party, if you're interested in getting more involved, if you're already a small L Libertarian but not a big L Libertarian, come on out and meet the others. Yeah, it is. There's Marcia, Tuesday 6:30. Yeah, I thought so.
Marcia's awesome.
Oh yeah, Marcia's the ringleader. So if you're interested in the party, if you're interested in learning,
quick Q&A. Should I bring bourbon? Yes.
Now, if you're bringing bourbon, I don't know that where we're meeting is going to like us bringing alcohol in. It's probably going to frown upon that. But That's what flasks are for. No, the point is that, dead serious. If you're interested in the party, if you've not been involved in the party before, if you've never interacted with the party, we have a lot of really good people involved, and they're very dedicated. People aren't getting paid here. We're volunteers. We're trying to grow this movement and grow the idea that you are an adult and you can take care of yourself. And I am an adult and I can take care of myself. And as long as we don't hurt each other and we don't take each other's stuff, we should be free to do that. And
the
so,
other thing, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The other thing I like to point out is if you've been a closet libertarian for years, and I was a libertarian for about 14 years before I went out and to an event on purpose that had another one.
Right.
But once you start interacting with your brother and sister libertarians, to me anyway, it just feels better. I mean, it feels better to be among your people. And like if you tuned in last night and watched me and Jacob Clark talking about abortion, I thought that was a great example because we don't exactly agree, but we have really nice conversations about it.
Right.
It's just kind of less of a war. So do come out, meet your fellow L's. The water's great. The bourbon too.
As you know, I'm a big fan of debate and discourse.
Sure.
I think that having conversations helps us grow as individuals, which in turn helps society grow, right? Because we're all a piece of society. So the more we talk, the more we discuss, the more we think about the issues and ways to solve them. The more that we consider, do we need more government? Do we need less government? Do we need a switch in government? What is it that is the actual solution, right? The more we talk about those things, the better off we're going to be. That it is the debate and the discourse and tying this all back to the beginning. That's why we need more choices on the ballot. That's because if we have more choices on the ballot more consistently, and we didn't even get into this about the debates and how they're run by a corporation that's literally co-owned by the Democrats and Republicans, which is why no one's ever allowed to be in, except for Ross Perot, who just basically threatened to buy 30 minutes ahead or behind the debates.
Well, what are you doing next Tuesday, Ken?
I will be in Cynthiana next Tuesday.
Oh yeah, that's right. We'll have to do that sometime though. We'll do one on that.
Yeah, and that's the debates. We need more voices. We need more discourse. We need more discussion, and it can't just be 2-word or 1-word bumper sticker slogans. It needs to be real conversation and real thought about the future for ourselves, for our families, for our children, for the next generation, for our neighbors, for our friends, for our families. This is real stuff. And it can't just be like, make America great again, or stop Trump, or defy, or whatever slogan is going on. There's so much more that we really need to talk about. And that's why it's so important to have more voices out there. Look, I didn't agree with him on everything, but Gatewood Galbraith really challenged me when, as an independent candidate, people tried to label as a libertarian. I don't think he was a libertarian, maybe a small L. He definitely wasn't big L.
First man I voted for.
But he challenged a lot of my premises, and by doing that, made me think more about my position, refine my position on a number of issues. And I think that made me stronger on particular issues as far as being able to talk about them, being able to discuss them, and come up with solutions that I believe will be better for our state and our local area. And so, though he has passed, and may God rest his soul, he was somebody who challenged the status quo as a voice, who was able to make people think and get people to consider alternatives. And if we had a whole lot more of that, I think our country would be in a lot better shape. I think our state would be in a whole lot better shape. Certainly all the shutdowns, 45% unemployment now in Kentucky, if it's not even higher than that at this point. There's a real need for some real alternative voices right now, because shut it down, don't do anything. They're not solutions, and we need more voices.
Well, I can tell you at the medical marijuana rally, I believe around March 9th, March 10th, something like that, they were very much remembering their old friend Gatewood.
Yeah.
And they were very much wishing he could be there. But if medical marijuana is important to you,
we have
support our state level candidates, really.
Because we have a number of them running specifically on that issue.
Absolutely.
And and I'll just say it practically, and I know we're running up against the clock here, but this is where, how much government do you want comes into play, right? Because we have industrial hemp, and we have that. And Gatewood was pushing for that in his last campaign, and it's so sad that he died before he got to see it become a real thing.
Right.
I hope that wherever he is now, he's smiling, that he sees that has happened. But that's the problem is it's heavily regulated. And again, getting back to cronyism, whose friends and whatever get to own the producers, the processors, right? It's all politically connected that have those. So they're all getting their cut. And that's why it became okay, because as long as the political class gets their cut, it's okay. That's the type of corruption that people want to see ended, right? Which is why, for me, I say legalize the whole plant. As someone who's never consumed marijuana, who has no interest in doing so, I mean, if it was legal, I might try it, maybe. I mean, whatever. But I've been around people who have the only danger they pose is to a box of Twinkies and a bag of Doritos and probably a large pizza and maybe some more food. But
let me help you out, Ken.
Yeah.
If you want to just legalize the whole plant, two things you can do.
Yeah.
One, you can go to perry4ky.com/donate.
Yes, sir.
And send all your money there. The other thing you can do is you can go to candidates and look at all the state level candidates and go support them, because you need me and Frank Harris and Brad Barron in Washington, and you need all our local candidates going to Frankfurt. And every libertarian you send makes a difference. Every single vote for a libertarian makes a difference.
It does.
If nothing else, it makes them afraid to not adopt our stance.
Jacob Clark's exactly right. Treat it like alcohol, responsible adult use. Look, the reason we got industrial hemp was because Take Back Kentucky was pushing for it. Gatewood was pushing for it and got almost 10% in a governor's race. And combined, getting a couple other people to buy in, including Jamie Comer, who's the current 1st District congressman, to buy in. That's how we got it, right? We didn't win an election. We just got enough. And that matters, is getting enough. You don't have to win a political race to win the political battle, right? And so the point is that with cannabis specifically, Ohio has medical, but it's heavily regulated. And I bet you'll be shocked to hear that it is politically connected people that get to decide what's allowed and what's not, which is again, the political corruption. Just stop. Just let it go. Like, I'm not a weed guy, but I don't care.
Right.
Some people that smoke weed, they're going to be okay, or they won't, but that's their life. It's their decision. It's not my life. It's not my decision. And the amount of corruption that comes from over-regulating this stuff is off the hook. So rather than saying, no, let's not do it because there are actual medicinal benefits, let's not do it because there are actual industrial hemp benefits to doing it, manufacturing textile, just let it go. And you know what? Some people are going to abuse it. Some people are going to get high. Well, you know what? I like bourbon, and I will admit that on occasion I've had a little too much. I don't drive because that's a bad idea to drink and drive. And I think that's irresponsible. But, it's okay. Like, I survived. Everyone survived. And I got a little drunk, and then I got sober. And my superpower is I don't get hungover. But that's a whole other story. The point is that it's not really any different. As long as Jacob Clark said, responsible adult use. Anytime I've been anywhere where I'm going to drink in excess, I have made sure that I have arrangements to stay where I'm at for the evening. I do not have to drive anywhere. And I put no one in danger other than, that.
Your liver.
Yeah, other than my liver, who, at times may, hold up a protest sign or something, but that might get it snatched off the street by anyway.
Unmarked vans.
Yes. That's the point, right? Is let's actually stop political corruption. Political corruption comes from all the regulations. This is the type of conversation we need to be having that we're not having because Republicans and Democrats dominate the ballot. They dominate the process. We need outside voices. This is something that we and the Green Party, for instance, agree upon, that we think that we converge there, but we differentiate on other things like firearm rights, where the Libertarian Party is very staunchly pro-Second Amendment and beyond, where the Greens are not. And that's okay. Again, it's all about the discourse and debate. That's why we need more choices. That's why we need ballot access freedom and actually have a legitimate level playing field so that these ideas can get out and people can think about them and make rational adult decisions for themselves.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, Ken. And
no problem. And
giving us so much information. What's that say? JO20.com. Yeah.
Yes.
I could read it perfectly well, man. I didn't need to see it anyway.
That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. JO20.com.
Yes, sir. And, again, let's have the discussion. Let's have the debate. Voting for Joe at a minimum opens the door for continued discussion and debate about important issues that affect everybody in their everyday lives.
All right. Now you got to go to your actual Joe meeting.
We got to go do our thing. So,
all right. Later, man.
For watching. And if you're interested, you can follow me on Facebook, which I didn't put in the comments and whatever, but Facebook. Yeah. Ken.Moellman. It's right there. Just put a dot in the middle, take the comma and the other stuff off. Ken.Moellman. You can find me there. Thank you, Rob. Thanks to everybody who's watching. And let's get more voices out there so we can actually solve some problems.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.